There it goes. Welcome back to another thrilling installment of Fraggoth Reads. I'm your intrepid narrator, Fraggoth, and today I'm going to read more of Cyteen by one CJ Cherryh. So this Ariane Emory project is proceeding. Proceeding possibly even apace. It is rolling along. Right now, she's a little kid, and we don't have too much from her perspective. We've had a little from her perspective, but not a ton. Yeah, let's go with that. That should be fine. That's like 30-odd, almost 40 pages. The little bit of her perspective we've gotten was at a New Year's Eve party to celebrate the New Year. How are they celebrating the New Year? You've got a space civilization. Well, you can do whatever you want. Anyway, she's there at this party, and she notices this guy and this other guy. And she walks up and says, "Hi. I'm enjoying my party. I have a nice dress on. You know, nothing too crazy." But the entire room basically flinches. Because, of course, she's approached like the one person that they don't want having any contact with her, which is Justin Warwick. So, she notices that everybody twitches when she does this. So, it's very much a, did I do that? Moment. So the hints are there that she's picking up on stuff. Mostly what has been going on is kind of discussing people's lives in the wake of what happened to Ariane Emory. It's been a couple years. Justin is still under close scrutiny. He's still having tape flashes from whatever it was that Ari did to him, plus, the psych probe interrogation he received after she died, and all that good stuff. We're also getting some insight into the woman who would be Ari's mother, Jane Strassen, and some of the difficulties that she's having because they've got to stick to a program. Certain things have to happen in Ari's life. And she's like, She's not terribly thrilled about what that will wind up being. We've had hints as to what that'll be, but they haven't told us flat out. At any rate, the project moves forward. So, let's get some more in us. Give me a sec here to get some more fluid in me, and we will rock and roll. Yeah, the politicking. There is a lot of politics in this, but enough of it is either so arcane or is done with characters that we see outside of that arena that it winds up working pretty well. Jim Burke. Ordinarily, I would be like, oh, okay, what are we doing here? But that's kind of, it's somewhat deliberate on the part of the book where it's like it throws you in the deep end, and then it's like, well, some of this matters, some of it doesn't matter, but it gets down to the dirty business of kind of explaining. It's done mostly as a set piece to reflect, oh, okay, here's this person, and they wield power. And they're very good at wielding power. And then we see them in a more personable setting, and we kind of go from there. We will have more politics later. It comes in dribs and drabs, fits and starts. It is important, but it's not the whole book. Verbal text from Patterns of Growth, a tape study in genetics, number 1. An interview with Ariane Emory, part 1. Reseune Educational Publications, 8970-8768-1, approved for 80+. Questioner. Dr. Emory, thank you for giving us the chance for a few direct questions about your work. Ari. I'm glad to have the opportunity. Thank you. Go on. Your parents founded Reseune. Everyone knows that. Are you aware some biographers have called you the chief architect of Union? I've heard the charge. Mild laughter. I wish they'd wait till I'm dead. You deny your effect, politically as well as scientifically? I'm no more the architect than Boke was. Science is not politics. It may affect it. We have so little time. Could I interject an observation of my own, which may answer some of your questions in one? By all means. When we came out from Earth, we were a selected gene pool. We were sifted by politics, by economics, by the very fact that we were fit for space. Most of the wave that reached the hinder stars were colonists and crews very carefully vetted by Sol Station, the allegedly unfit turned down, the brightest and the best, I think the phrase was then, sent out to the stars. By the time the wave reached Pell, the gene pool had widened a bit, but not at all representative of Sol Station, let alone Earth. We did get one large influx when politics on Earth took a hand, and the wave that founded Union ended up mostly Eastern Bloc, as they used to call it. A lot of chance entered the gene pool in that final push, before Earth slammed the embargo down and stopped genetic export for a long time. Cyteen was the sifting of the sifting of the sifting, meaning that if there was one population artificially selected to the extreme, it was Cyteen, which was mostly Eastern Bloc, mostly scientists, and very, very small, and very far at that time from trade and the, call it, pollination performed by the merchanters. That was a dangerous situation. Hence Reseune. That's where we began. That's what we're really for. People think of Reseune and Azzy. Azzy were only a means to an end, and one day, when the population has reached what they call tech growth positive, meaning that consumption will sustain mass production, Azzy will no longer be produced in those areas. But meanwhile, Azzy serve another function. Azzy are the reservoir of every genetic trait we've been able to identify. We have tended to cull the evidently deleterious genes, of course. But there's a downside to small gene pools, no matter how carefully selected. There's a downside in lack of resiliency, lack of available responses to the environment. Expansion is absolutely necessary to avoid concentration of an originally limited gene pool in the central locus of union. We are not speaking of we are not speaking of eugenics. We are speaking of diaspora. We are speaking of the necessary dispersion of genetic information in essentially the same ratios as that present on ancestral Earth. And we have so little time. Questioner. Why so little time? Ari. Because population increases exponentially and fills an ecosystem, be it planet or station, in relatively short time. If that population contains insufficient genetic information, that population, especially a population at greater density than the peripheries of the system, we are of course speaking of Cyteen, and sitting at the cultural center of union, which is another dimension not available to lower life forms, but very significant in terms of a creature able to engineer its own systems in all senses, if that population, I say, in such power, contains inadequate genetic information, it will run into trouble and confront itself with emergency choices which may be culturally or genetically radical.
In spreading into space at much lesser density and with such pre-selection at work, humankind faces potential evolutionary catastrophe in a relatively small number of generations. Either divergence too extreme to survive severe challenge, or divergence into a genetic crisis of a different and unpredictable outcome. Certainly the creation of new species of genus Homo, and very probably the creation of genetic dead ends and political tragedy. Never forget that we are more than a social animal. We are a political animal, and we are capable of becoming our own competitor.
You mean war?
Or predation. Or predation. Never forget that. Dispersion is absolutely essential, but so are adequately diverse gene pools in the scattered pockets that result. That is the reason Azi were created and continue to be created. They are the vectors of that diversity, and that some economic interests have found them profitable is understandable, but overall repugnant to me personally and to everything Reseune stands for. History may accuse me of many things, sir, but I care profoundly what becomes of the Azi, and I have exerted every influence to assure their legal protection. We do not create thetas because we want cheap labor. We create thetas because they are an essential and important part of human alternatives. The THR-23 hand-eye coordination, for instance, is exceptional. Their psych set lets them operate very well in environments in which CIT's geniuses would assuredly fail. They are tough, sir, in ways I find thoroughly admirable, and I recommend you, if you ever find yourself in a difficult situation in Cyteen's wilderness, hope your companion is a THR Azi, who will survive, sir, to perpetuate his type, even if you do not. That is genetic alternative at work. Someday there will be no more Azi. They will have fulfilled their purpose, which is to increase and multiply and fill the gaps in the human record as the original gene pool disperses to a mathematically determined population density, as it must disperse for its own future well-being, its own genetic health. I say again, Azi are genetic alternative. They are the vector for change and adaptation in the greatest challenge the human species has yet faced. They are as they are precisely because the time within which this can be accomplished is so very brief. Reseune is not opposed to the creation of additional labs, simply because its interests are primarily scientific, and because the task of maintaining the impetus to expansion requires vast production and education facilities. But Reseune has never relinquished its role in the creation and selection of new gene sets. No other laboratory has the right to originate genetic material. While you're being patient, let me make two most essential points. 1. Reseune insists on the full integration of all Azi gene sets into the citizen population in any area of union that has achieved Class 1 status. In practical terms, Azi are ideally a one-generation proposition. Their primary purpose is not labor, but to open a colonial area, bring it up to productivity, and produce offspring who will enter the citizen gene pool in sufficient numbers to guarantee genetic variety. The only Azi who should be produced for any other purpose are those generated as a stopgap measure for defense and other emergencies in the national interest, those engaged in certain critical job classifications, and those generated for appropriate research in licensed facilities. 2. Reseune will oppose any interest which seeks to institutionalize Azi as an economic necessity. In no wise should the birth labs be perpetuated as a purely profit-making operation. That was never their purpose.
Q. Are you saying you have interests in common with the abolitionists?
A. Absolutely. We always have had.
The other thing I'll say about the politics in this book is it is kind of a background texture. There is a lot of it going on. We'll occasionally get interjections about it, but it is mostly, as you said, setting of the stage. And an introduction to Ari, showing her at the height of her power. so that it's significant that you see what happens afterwards. Chapter 5. I do want to apologize. My throat is a bit froggy. I think I'm coming down with something. I'm not sure what. So some of the voices are going to be a little dodgy. Chapter 5. 1. Florian ran along the sidewalk that crossed the face of Barracks 3, remembered politeness when he met a handful of adults coming the other way, stopped, stood aside, panting, and gave a little bow that the adults returned with the slightest nods of their heads. Because they were older. Because Florian was 6, and because it was natural for a boy to want to run, but it was also natural for adults to have serious business on their minds. So we learn that it's been a time skip of about 3 years, give or take, a couple of years. So this time did Florian have business. He was fresh from tape study. He had an assignment, a real every morning assignment. That's with a capital A. It was the most important thing that had ever happened to him. He loved everything about it, and he had been so excited he had begged the super twice to let him go there and not to the rec hall, where he was supposed to go after tape. What? The super had said, with a smile and a little twinkle in her eye that he was sure meant she was going to let him. No rec. Work and rec are both important, Florian. I've had rec before, he had said. Please. She had given him the chit then, and the rec chit for later, she had said, as long as he showed it to the work super first, and held out her arms. Hug the super, the very nice super, and don't run in the hall. Walk, walk, and walk as far as the door, walk down the sidewalk until he hit the downhill road, and then run, fast as he could. Which was fast, because he was not only alpha smart, he was good at running. Down the shortcut between Barracks 4 and 5, zip across the road, and shortcut again to the path that led to the AG building. He slowed down finally because his side was hurting, and he hoped in the way of things that moved everybody around all the time. Whoa. Just a sec, she's doing one of these long sentences that sometimes my reading aloud method doesn't allow me to keep up with what she's doing. Slowed down finally because his side was hurting, and he hoped in the way of things that moved everybody around all the time, olders with younger boys, that they were going to... Okay. Got tripped up on a comma. That's me. He slowed down finally because his side was hurting, and he hoped in the way of things that moved everybody around all the time, olders with younger boys, they were going to check him into a bunk a little closer to Ag next month. It was far from Barracks 104. 104. I mangled it. He's hoping that they'll move him to a closer barracks. A barracks closer to AG, agriculture. Olders with jobs had priority on the bunks nearest. That was what he had heard from an older, who was Kappa, who said he was always in the same barracks group. He caught his breath as he walked up to AG-100. He had been near here before. He had seen the pens. He liked the smell. It was the way Ag smelled, that was all, and there was nothing like it. It was a kind of ad place in front. All white, with a sealed door, of course. You were supposed to go to ad. That is capital A, lowercase d. He knew that the way tape showed you things. He knew that, the way tape showed you things. There we go. He pulled down the door latch and it let him into a busy office, where there was a counter he was supposed to go to. He could lean on counters lately. Just barely. He was not as tall as other sixes. Taller than some, though. He waited till a worker turned around and came to see what he wanted. I'm Florian AF-9979, he said, and held up the red chit. I'm assigned here. She gave him a polite nod and took the chit. He waited, licking dry lips, not fidgeting while she put it in the machine. You certainly are, she said. Do you know how to follow the colors? Yes,
he said, with no doubt at all. And didn't ask questions because she was a worker doing her job, and she would probably say, if you didn't get everything you needed when she was finished then you asked. Sorry. If you didn't get everything you needed when she was finished, then you asked. That way you didn't make people make mistakes, which was a fault on your side. He knew. She sat down at a keyboard. She typed, and the machine put out a card she took and added a clip to. He watched, excited because he knew it was a key card, and it was probably his because she was working on his business. She brought it to him and leaned over the counter to show him things about it. He stood on tiptoe and twisted around so they could both see. There's your name. There are your colors. This is a key card. You clip it to your pocket. Whenever you change clothes, you clip it to your pocket. That's very serious. If you lose it, come to this office immediately. Yes, he said. It all clicked with things tape said. Have you any questions? No, thank you. Thank you, Florian. Little bow. Walk, then, back out the door and onto the walk, and look up at the corner of the building where the color codes started. But he could read all the words on the card anyway, and on the building. Walk. No running now. This was business, and he was important. Blue was his color, and white inside that, and green inside the white. So he went in the blue direction until he was inside blue, and then inside blue's white zone. The squares told him. More and more exciting. It was the pens. He saw green finally on a sign at the intersection of the gravel walks and followed that way until he saw a green building, which also said Ag 899. That was right. It was a barn of sorts on one side. He asked an Azzy for the super. The Azzy pointed to a big bald man talking to someone over in the big doorway, and he went there and stood until the super was clear. Florian, the super had said when he had seen the card. Well, looking him up and down, and called an Azzy named Andy to take him and show him his work. But he knew that from tape. He was supposed to feed the chickens, make sure all the water was clean, and check the temperature on the brooders and the pig nursery. He knew how important that was. You're awfully young, Andy said of him, but you sound like you understand. Yes, he said. He was sure he did. So Andy let him show him how much he was to feed, and how he was to mark the chart every time he did, and every time he checked the water, and how you had to be careful not to frighten the chicks because they would hurt each other. He loved how they all bunched up like a fluffy tide, and all went this way or that way, and the piglets squealed and would knock you down if you let them get to swarming around you, which was why you carried a little stick. He did everything the best he could, and Andy was happy with him, which made him the happiest he had ever been in his life. He carried buckets, and he emptied water pans, and Andy said he could try to hold a piglet as long as he was there to watch. It wiggled and squealed and tramped him with its sharp little feet, and it got away while he was laughing and trying to protect himself. Andy laughed and said there was a way to do it, but he would show him later. It was a nice feeling, though. It had been warm and alive in his arms, except he knew pigs were for eating, and for making other pigs, and you had to keep that in mind and not think of them like people. He dusted himself off, and he went out to catch his breath a minute, leaning on the fence rail by the side of the barn. He saw an animal in that pen that he had never seen, so beautiful that he just stood there with his mouth open and never wanted to blink. It was like that. Red like the cattle, but shiny pelted and strong, with long legs and a way of moving that was different than any animal he had ever seen. This one didn't walk, it went. It moved like it was playing a game all by itself. What's that? He asked, hearing Andy come up by him. What kind is that? AGCULT-894X, Andy said. That's a horse. He's the first ever lived, the first ever in the world. Two. Ari liked the play school. They got to go out in the open air and play in the sandbox every afternoon. She liked to sit barefoot and make roads. Yikes. She liked to sit barefoot and make roads with the graders, and Tommy or Amy or Sam or Reen would run the trucks and dump them. Sometimes they pretended there were storms, and all the toy workers would run and get in the trucks. Sometimes there was a platithyr, and it tore up the roads, and they had to rebuild them. That was what Sam said. Sam's mother was in engineering, and Sam told them about platithyrs. She asked Maman, was that so, and Maman said yes. Maman had seen them big as the living room couch. There were really big ones way out west, big as a truck. The one they had was only a middle-sized one, and it was ugly. Ari liked being it. You got to tear up the roads and the walls, just push it right through under the sand, and there it all went. She took it and shoved it along with the sand going over her hand. "Look out," she said to Sam and Amy. "Here it comes." She was tired of Amy building her house. Amy had a big one going, sand all piled up, and Amy made doors and windows in the house, and fussed with it. Which was no fun, because Sam put a tower on Amy's house, and Amy knocked it off and told him to go make a road up to her door. She was making a house, and her house didn't have towers. Amy got a spoon and hollowed out behind the windows and put plastic in so you couldn't see inside anyway. She made a wall in front and hollowed out an arch for the road. And they both had to sit and wait while Amy built. So Ari looked at that arch where the road was supposed to come and thought it would be just the place, and the sand would all come down. "Look out!" "No!" Amy yelled. Ari plowed right through it. Bang! Down came the wall. The sand came down on her arm, and she just kept going because platithyrs did, no matter what. Even if Amy grabbed her arm and tried to stop her. Sam helped her knock it down. Amy yelled and shoved her. She shoved Amy. Phaedra got there and told them they mustn't fight, and they were all going inside. Early. So that was nasty Amy Carnath's fault. Amy was not back the next day. That was the way with people she fought with. She was sorry about that. You fought with them, and they took them away, and you only saw them at parties after. There had been Tommy and Angel and Jerry and Kate, and they were gone and couldn't play with her any more. So when Amy was gone the next day, she moped and sulked and told Phaedra she wanted Amy back. "If you don't fight with her," Phaedra said, "we'll ask Sarah." So Amy did come back. But Amy was funny after that. Even Sam was. Every time she did something, they let her. That was no fun, she thought, so she teased them. She stole Sam's trucks and turned them over, and Sam let her do that. He just sat there and frowned, all unhappy. She knocked Amy's house down before she was through with it. Amy just pouted. So she did. Sam turned his trucks back over and decided they had had a wreck. That was an all-right game. She played too and set the trucks up. But Amy was still pouting, so she ran a truck at her. "Don't!" Amy snapped at her. "Don't!" So she hit her with it. Amy scrambled back, and Ari got up, and Amy got up. And Amy shoved her. So she shoved her harder and kicked her good. Amy hit her. So she hit. And they were hitting each other when Phaedra grabbed her. Amy was crying, and Ari kicked her good before Phaedra snatched her out of reach. Sam just stood there. "Amy was a baby," Ari said that night when Maman asked her why she had hit Amy. Amy can't come back, Maman said. Not if you're going to fight. So she promised they wouldn't. But she didn't think so. Amy was out for a couple of days, and she came back. She was all pouty, and she kept over to herself, and she wasn't any fun. She wouldn't even speak when Sam was nice to her. So Ari walked over and kicked her good several times. Sam tried to stop her. Phaedra grabbed her by the arm and said she was wrong and she had to sit down and play by herself. So she did. She took the grader and made sad, angry roads. Sam came over finally and ran a truck on them, but she still hurt. Amy just sat over in the other corner and sniveled. That was what Maman called it. Amy wouldn't even play anymore. Ari felt a knot in her throat that made it hard to swallow, but she was not baby enough to cry, and she hated Amy's sniveling. That hurt her and made nothing any fun anymore. Sam was sad, too. After that, Amy wasn't there very often. When she was, she just sat to herself, and Ari hit her once, good, in the back. Phaedra took Amy by the hand and took her to the door and inside. Ari went back to Sam and sat down. Valerie wasn't there much at all. Pete wasn't. She liked them most. That just left Sam, and Sam was just Sam, a kid with a wide face and not much expression on it. Sam was all right, but Sam hardly ever talked, except he knew about platithyrs and fixing trucks. She liked him all right, but she lost everything else. If you liked it most, it went away. It was not Amy she missed. It was Valerie. Sarah Schwartz had gotten transferred, so that meant Valerie was. She had asked him if he would come back and see her. He had said yes. Maman had said it was too far, so she understood that he was really gone and he would not come back at all. She was mad at him for going, but it was not his fault. He gave her his spaceship with the red light. That was how sorry he was. Maman had said that she had to give it back, so she had to, before she left the Schwartz's place and said goodbye. She did not understand why it was wrong, but Valerie had cried and she had. Sarah Schwartz had been mad at her. She could tell, even if Sarah Schwartz was being nice, and said she would miss her. Maman had taken her home, and she had cried herself to sleep, even if Maman was mad at something and told her to stop crying. She did it for a while, but for days after she would snivel. And Maman would say, "Stop it," so she did, because Maman was getting upset and things were getting tight around the apartment. Tight was all she could call it. That made everything awful, so she knew she was upsetting Maman. She was scared sometimes. She could not say why. She was unhappy about Amy, and she tried to be good to Sam and Tommy when he came, but she thought if she got Amy back, she would hit her again. She would hit Sam and Tommy, too, but if she did, she would not have anybody at all. Phaedra said she had to be good. They were running out of kids. "3. This is the room," the instructor said. "Yes, sir," Catelyn said. She was nervous and anxious at the same time. She had heard about the room from Olders. She heard about the things they did to you, like turning the lights off and on, like turning the lights on and off, and sometimes water on the floor. But her instructor always had the real word. Her instructor told her she had to get through a tunnel and do it fast. "Are you ready?" "Yes, sir." He opened the door. It was a tiny place with another door. The one behind her shut, and the lights went out.
The one in front of her opened, and cold, wet air hit her in the face. The place had echoes. She moved, not even sure where the tunnel was or whether she was in it. "Stop!" a voice yelled, and a red dot lit the wall and popped. It was a shot. She knew that. Her body knew what to do. She was tumbling and meaning to roll and find cover, but the whole floor dropped, and she kept rolling down a tube and splash into cold water. She flailed and got up in knee-deep water. You never believed us safe. Someone had shot. You ran and got to cover. But, "Get through," the instructor had said, "fast as you can." So she got, fast as she could, till she ran into a wall and followed it, up again onto the dry, in a place that rang under her boots. Noise was bad. It was dark, and she was easy to see in the dark because of her pale skin and hair. She did not know whether she ought to sneak or run, but fast was fast. That was what the instructor said. She ran easy and quick, fingers of one hand trailing on the wall to keep her sense of place in the dark, and one hand out ahead of her so she wouldn't run into something. The tunnel did turn. She headed up a climb and down again onto concrete, and it was still dark. "Something," she thought, just before she got to it, and the ambush grabbed her. She elbowed it and twisted and knew it was an enemy when she felt it grab her, but it only got cloth, and twisting got her away, fast, fast, hard as she could run, heart hammering. She hit the wall where it turned, bang, and nearly knocked herself cold, but she scrambled up and kept going, kept going. The door opened, white and blinding. Something made her duck and roll through it, and she landed on the floor in the tiny room, with the taste of blood in her mouth and her lip cut and her nose bleeding. One door shut and the other opened, and the man there was not the instructor. He had the brown of the enemy, and he had a gun. She tried to kick him, but he got her. She heard the buzz. The door shut again and opened, and she was getting up, mad and ashamed. But this time it was her instructor. "The enemy is never fair," he said. "Let's go find out what you did right and wrong." Catelyn wiped her nose. She hurt. She was still mad and ashamed. She had gotten through. She wished she had got the man at the end. But he was an older. That was not fair either. And her nose would not stop bleeding. The instructor got a cold cloth and had her put it on her neck. He said the med would look at her nose and her mouth. Meanwhile, he turned on the scriber and had her tell what she did, and he told her most sixes got stopped in the tunnel. "You're exceptionally good," he said. At which she'd felt much, much better. But she was not going to forget the enemy at the end. They got you here even when the lesson was over. That was the rule. She hated being got. She hated it. She knew when you grew up you went where got was dead. She knew what dead was. They took the sixes down to the slaughterhouse and they saw them kill a pig. It was fast and it stopped being a pig right there. They hauled it up and cut it and they got to see what dead meant. You just stopped, and after that, you were just meat. No next time when you were dead, and you had to get the enemy first and make the enemy dead fast. She was good, but the enemy was not fair. That was a scary thing to learn. She started shaking. She tried to stop, but the instructor saw anyhow and said the med had better have a look at her. "Yes, sir," she said. Her nose still bubbled and the cloth was red. She blotted at it and felt her knees wobble as she walked, but she walked all right. The med said her nose was not broken. A tooth was loose, but that was all right. It would fix itself. The instructor said she was going to start marksmanship. He said she would be good in that because her genotype was rated that way. She was expected to do well in the room. All her genotype did.
He said genotypes could sometimes get better. He said that was who she had to beat. That was who every Aussie had to beat, even if she had never seen any other AC 7892. She got a good mark for the day. She could not tell anyone. You were never supposed to. She could not talk about the tunnel. The instructor told her so. It was a rule. It was only the last enemy that worried her. The instructor said a gun would have helped and size would have helped, but otherwise there was not much she could have done. It had not been wrong to roll at the last, even if it put her on the floor when the door opened. "I could have run past him," she said. "He would have shot you in the back," the instructor said, "even in the hall." She thought and thought about that. One of the things I like about CJ Cherryh, but is maddeningly difficult to read aloud, is the way she will portray... in this book in particular, she's got like an entire rhythm for how some of these people are thinking, and it is, in the case of, say, Catelyn, it's very weird. I find it very weird. It makes sense because of the way she's being trained, and there's lingo and words that are capitalized, and you don't necessarily know what they mean exactly, but they're pretty clear. It's one of the reasons I adore the book, but reading it aloud is a bit of a trial, and I apologize if I'm mangling it and making it sound even more stumbly than it otherwise would. 4. "Vid off," Justin said, and the minder cut it. He sat in his bathrobe on the couch. Grant wandered in, likewise in his bathrobe, toweling his hair. "What's the news tonight?" Grant asked, and Justin said, with a little unease at his stomach, "There's some kind of flap in Novgorod, something about a star named Gehenna." Long-time listeners might have that ring a little bit of a bell. "Where's that?" There was no star named Gehenna in anybody's reckoning, or there had not been until tonight. Grant looked suddenly sober as he sat down on the other side of the pit. "Over toward Alliance, past Viking." The news report had not been entirely specific. "Seems there's a planet there, with humans on it. Seems Union colonized it without telling anybody. 60 years ago." "My God," Grant murmured. "Alliance ambassadors arrived at station with an official protest. They're having an emergency session of the council. Seems we're in violation of the treaty. About a dozen clauses of it." "How big a colony?" Grant asked, right to the center of it. "They don't know. They don't say." "And nobody knew about it? Some kind of defense base?" "Might be. Might well be. But it isn't now. Apparently it's gone primitive." Grant hissed softly. "Survivable world. Has to be, doesn't it? We're not talking about any ball of rock. The news service is talking about the chance of some secret stuff from back in the war years." Grant was quiet a moment, elbows on knees. The war was the generation before them. The war was something no one wanted to repeat, but the threat was always there. The Alliance merchanters came and went. Saul had explored the other side of space and got its fingers burned. Dangerously. ETs with a complex culture and an isolationist sentiment. Now Saul played desperate politics between Alliance and Union, trying to keep from falling under Alliance rule and trying to walk the narrow line that might leave it independent of Alliance ships without pushing Alliance into defending its treaty prerogatives or bringing Alliance interests and Union into conflict. Things were so damned delicate, and they had gotten gradually better. A generation had grown up thinking it was solving the problems. But old missiles the warships had launched 100 years ago were still a shipping hazard. Sometimes the past came back into the daily news with a vengeance. And old animosities surfaced like ghosts, troubling a present in which humans knew they were not alone. "It doesn't sound like it was any case of finding 3 or 4 survivors," he said to Grant. "They're saying illegal colony, and they admit it's ours."
Still going? Organized?
"It's not real clear."
Another moment of silence. Grant sat up then and remembered to dry his hair before it dried the way it was. "Damn crazy mess," Grant said. "Did they say they got them off, or are they going to? Or what are they going to do about it?"
"Don't know yet."
"Well, we can guess where Gerard's going to be for the next week or so, can't we?" Five. Ari was bored with the offices. She watched the people come in and out. She sat at a desk in back of the office and cut out folded paper in patterns that she unfolded. She got paper and drew a fish with a long tail. Finally, she got up and slipped out while Kyle wasn't looking, while Maman was doing something long and boring in the office inside, and it looked like Maman was going to be talking a long time. Which meant Maman would not mind much if she walked up and down the hall. It was only offices. That meant no stores, no toys, nothing to look at, and no vid. She liked sitting and coloring all right, but... Sorry. She liked sitting and coloring all right, but Maman's own offices were best because there was a window to look out. There was nothing but doors up and down. The floor had metal stripes, and she walked one, while she looked in the doors that were open. Most were. That was how she saw Justin. He was at a desk, working at a keyboard, very serious. She stood in the doorway and saw him there, and waited, just watching him for the little bit until he would see her. He was always different from all the rest of the people. She remembered him from a glittery place, and Grant with him. She saw him only sometimes, and when she asked Maman why people got upset about Justin, Maman said she was imagining things. She knew she was not. It was a danger feeling. It was a worried feeling. She knew she ought not to bother him, but it was all right here in the hall, where there were people going by, and she just wanted to look at him, but she did not want to go inside. She shifted to her other foot, and he saw her then. "Hello," she said, and got that fear feeling again. His, as he looked up, and hers, as she thought she could get in trouble with Maman. "Hello," he said, nervous-like. It was always like that when she was around Justin. The nervous feeling went wherever he did, and got worse when she got close to him. From everybody. It was a puzzle she could not work out, and she sensed by the way Maman shut down on questions about Justin that he was a puzzle Maman did not approve of. Ollie, too. Justin came to parties, and she saw him from across the room, but Maman always came and got her if she went to say hello. So she thought that Justin was somebody in a lot of trouble for something, and maybe there was something wrong with him, so they were not sure he was going to behave right. Sometimes Azzy got like that. Sometimes CITs did. Maman said. And it was harder to straighten CITs out, but easier to make Azzy upset. So she mustn't tease them. Except Ollie could take it all right. There was a lot about Justin that said Ozzy, but she knew he wasn't. He was just Justin. And he was a puzzle that came and went, and no one ever wanted kids around. "Maman's down there with Sir Peterson," she said conversationally, also because she wanted him to know she was not running around where she had no business to be. So this was Justin's office. It was awfully small. Papers were everywhere. She leaned too far and caught her balance on the door. "Fool," Maman would say. "Stand up. Stand straight. Don't wobble around." But Justin never said much. He left everything for her to say. "Where's Grant?" "Grant's down at the library," Justin said. "I'm 6 now." "I know." "How do you know that?" Justin looked uncomfortable. "Isn't your Maman going to be wanting you pretty soon?"
Maman's having a meeting. I'm tired of being down there. He was going to ignore her, going back to his work. She was not going to have him turn his shoulder to her. She walked she walked in and up to the chair by his desk. She leaned on the arm and looked up at him. Ollie's always working. So am I. I'm busy, Ari. You go along. What are you doing? Work. She knew a go-away when she heard one. But she did not have to mind Justin. So she leaned on her arms and frowned and tried a new approach. I go to tape study. I can read that. It says She twisted around because it was a long word on the screen. Subliminal matrix. He turned the screen off and turned around and frowned at her. She thought maybe she had gone too far and oughtn't to be leaning on her elbows quite so close to him. But backing up was something she didn't like at all. She stuck out her lip at him. Go back to Mama, Ari. Go back to Mama, Ari. She's going to be looking for you. I don't want to. What's a subliminal matrix? A set of things. A special arrangement of a set. He shoved his chair back and stood up, so she stood up and got back. I've got an appointment. I've got to lock up the office. You'd better get on back to your mother. I don't want to. He was awfully tall, like Ollie. Not safe like Ollie. He was pushing her out, that was what. She stood her ground. Out, he said, at the door, pointing to the hall. She went out. He walked out and locked the door. She waited for him. She had that figured out. When he walked on down the hall, she went with him. Back, he said, stopping, pointing back to where Mama was. She gave him a nasty smile. I don't have to. He looked upset then, and he got very quiet, looking down at her. Ari, that's not nice, is it? I don't have to be nice. I'd like you better. That hurt. She stared up at him to see if he was being nasty, but he did not look like it. He looked as if he was the hurt one. She could not figure him. Everybody, but not him. She just stared. Can I go with you? She asked. Your mama wouldn't like it. He had a kind face when he talked like that. Go on back. I don't want to. They just talk. I'm tired of them talking. Well, I've got to go meet my people, Ari. I'm sorry. There aren't any people, she said, calling his bluff, because he had not been going anywhere until she bothered him. Well, I still have to. You go on back. She did not, but he walked away down the hall like he was really going somewhere. She wished she could. She wished he would be nice. She was bored and she was unhappy, and when she saw him she remembered the glittery people and everybody being happy, but she could not remember when that was. Only then Ollie had been there all the time, and Mama had been so pretty, and she had played with Valerie and gotten the star that hung in her bedroom. She walked back to Sir Peterson's office very slow. Kyle didn't even notice. She sat down and she drew a star, and thought about Valerie, and the red-haired man who was Grant, who was Justin's. She wished Ollie and Maman had more time for her. She wished Maman would come out, and they would go to lunch. Maybe Ollie could come. But Maman did not come any time soon, so she drew lines all over the star and made it ugly. Like everything. So she's kind of a depressed kid. It's sad to watch. 6. The documents show, the report came to Mikhail Korain's desk, the operation involved a clandestine military operation and the landing of 40,000 Union personnel, the majority of them Azzi. The mission was launched in 2355 as a defense operation.
There was no further support given the colony. The operation was not sustained. The best intelligence Alliance has mustered says that there are thousands of survivors who have devolved to a primitive lifestyle. Beyond question, they are descended of Azi and citizens. The assumption is that they had no rejuve and that after 60 years the survivors must be at least second and third generation. There are ruins of bubble construction and a solar power installation. The world is extremely hospitable to human life, and the survivors are in remarkably good health considering the conditions, practicing basic agriculture and hunting. The Alliance reports express doubt that the colonists can be removed from the world. The ecological damage is as yet undetermined, but there is apparently deep penetration of the colony into the ecosystem, and certain of the inhabitants have retreated into areas not easily accessible. It is the estimate of Alliance that the inhabitants would not welcome removal from the world, and Alliance does not intend to remove the colony, for whatever reason. The estimation within the Defense Bureau is that Alliance is interested in interviewing the survivors. Defense, however, will oppose any proposal to retrieve these Union nationals as an operation which Alliance will surely reject and which would be in any case counterproductive. The Azi were primarily but not exclusively from Reseune military contracts. See attached reports. The majority of citizens were military personnel. Nye will offer a bill expressing official regret and an offer of cooperation to the Alliance in dealing with the colonists. The expansionist coalition will be unanimous in that vote. Corain flipped through the reports. Pages of them. There was a sub-sapient on the world the colonists called Gehenna. There were a great many things that said Defense Bureau and information unavailable. I'm going to reread that so I have the proper emphasis on the right syllable. There were a great many things that said Defense Bureau and information unavailable. There was no way in hell Alliance or Union was going to be able to retrieve the survivors. For one thing, because they were scattered into the bush, and mostly because, according to Alliance, they were illiterate primitives and Alliance was going to resist any attempt to remove them. That much was clear in the position the Alliance ambassador was taking. Alliance was damned mad about the affair because it had been confronted with a major and expensive problem. An Earth-class planet in its own sphere of influence with an ecological disaster and an entrenched, potentially hostile colony. So was Corain angry about it for reasons partly ethical and partly political outrage. Defense had overstepped itself. Defense had covered this mess up back in the war years when, as now, Defense was in bed with Reseune and gifted with a blank credit slip. And if Corain could manage it, there was going to be a light thrown on the whole expansionist lunacy. 7. Gorodin was not accessible. That was not entirely a disaster, in Gerard Nye's estimation. Secretary of Defense Liu had sat proxy so often in the last 30 years he had far more respect on council and far more latitude in voting his own opinion than a proxy was supposed to have, the same way the Undersecretary of Defense virtually merged his own staff with Liu's and Gorodin's on-planet office. It was in effect a troika at the top of defense and had been de facto since the... I got confused there, my bad. Secretary of Defense Liu had sat proxy so often in the last 30 years he had far more respect on council and far more latitude in voting his own opinion than a proxy was supposed to have, the same way the Undersecretary of Defense virtually merged his own staff with Liu's and Gorodin's on-planet office. It was in effect a troika at the top of defense and had been de facto since the war years. I'm going to reread that with all the punctuation intact so you have some idea of what I'm dealing with here. The line breaks are also throwing me. Basically what they're saying is that it's been a de facto troika since the war years. I'm not going to reread it. And in Gerard's unvoiced opinion, it was better that the proxy was in, and Gorodin was somewhere classified and inaccessible at the other end of Union space. Lou, his face a map of wise secrets as Rejuve declined, his dark eyes difficult even for a veteran of Reseune to cipher, was playing his usual game of no authority to answer that, and I don't feel I should comment, while reporters clamored for information and Corain called for full disclosure. Full disclosure it had to be, at least among political allies. And Gerard had heard enough to upset his stomach all the way from Reseune to this sound-secure office, the sound screening working at his nerves and setting his teeth off. "It's absolutely true," Lou said, without reference to the folio that lay under his hands. "The mission was launched in 2355. It reached the star in question and dropped the colonists and the equipment. There was never any intention to return. At the time, we knew that the world was there. We knew that Alliance knew, that it was within their reach, or Earth's, and by the accident of its position, and its potential, it would be of major importance." Lou cleared his throat. "We knew we couldn't hold it practically. We knew we couldn't hold it in practicality. We couldn't defend it. We couldn't supply it. We did in fact purpose to remove it from profitability." Remove it from profitability. Alliance had sent a long-prepared and careful survey to the most precious find yet in near space, and found it, to its consternation, inhabited by humans not their own and not plausibly Earth's, leaving the absolutely undeniable conclusion, even without the ruined architecture and the fact that the survivors were Azi descended, Union had sabotaged a living planet. 40,000 people, Gerard said, feeling an emptiness at the pit of his stomach, dropped onto an untested planet, just like that. Lou blinked. Otherwise he might have been a statue. They were military, they were expendables. It was not, you understand, my administration, nor was there, in those days, the sensitivity to ecological concerns. So far as anyone then was reckoning, we were in a difficult military position. We had to reckon that a Maziani strike at Cyteen was a possibility. There were two possibilities in such a move. First, that the colony would survive and maintain Union principles should we meet with disaster, should Earth have launched some suicide mission at Cyteen itself. The secrecy of the colony was important in that consideration. "It was launched in 2355, Gerard said, "a year after the war ended." Lou folded his hands. "It was planned in the closing years of the war, when things were uncertain. It was executed after we had been confronted with general calamity and that disastrous treaty. It was a hole card, if you like. To let either Earth or Alliance have a world potentially more productive than Cyteen would have been disastrous. That was the second part of the plan. If the colony should perish, it would still contribute its microorganisms to the ecology. And in less than a century, present Alliance or whatever new owner... present Alliance or whatever new owner with a difficult problem, which our science could handle and theirs couldn't. I might say some native microorganisms were even engineered to accept our own engineered contributions at your own facility, as I'm sure your records will say. No mentioning the Azi and the tape tailoring." "You're damn right the records show it." Gerard found his breath difficult. "My God, we never knew the thing was actually launched. You know what kind of a security problem we've got? This isn't the 2350s. We're not at war. Your damn little time bomb's gone off in a century wherein we've got aliens stirred up on Sol's far side. We've got ecological treaties. We've got our own position, for God's sake, on ecological responsibility. The gene banks, the arcs, It was, of course, the architect of the gene banks and the treaty and the arcs who actually administered Reseune during the development of the Gehenna colony. Councillor Emory was signatory to all the contracts with defense.
The abolitionists, by God, The abolitionists, my God, we've handed them the best damn issue they could have dreamed of. It was a study project. God, Jordan Warwick's father worked on those Gehenna tapes. We trust Reseune security procedures didn't tell the project members what they were working on. Trust hell! It's on the news, General. The news gets to Planis eventually. You want to gamble Jordan Warwick won't know who in what department might have been working on those tapes, and what names and what specifics to hand to investigators if they get to him? Damage his own father's reputation? To protect his father's reputation, damn it, and blast Reseune's. You spent 40,000 Azzy to sabotage a planet, for God's sake. You linked the research to the Science Bureau, and it couldn't have picked a worse time to surface. Oh, Lou said quietly, I can imagine worse times than this. This is a quiet time, a time when humanity, especially Alliance, has many other worries. In fact, Gehenna's done exactly what it was designed to do. There is ecological calamity. Alliance is holding off development. The course of development of the Alliance has been irrevocably altered. If they absorb that population, they will absorb an ethically unique community with Union values, if you believe in the validity of your own taped instructions. In any case, if we forestalled either Alliance or Earth getting a very valuable resource, and a stepping stone to further stars. In any case, we forestalled either Alliance or Earth getting a very valuable resource, and a stepping stone to further stars. Now Alliance will either track down a scattered lot of primitives and remove them by force, a logistic nightmare, or Alliance will have to take them into account in its own settlement of the world, if they choose to settle. Intelligence informs us they're having second thoughts. They perceive a possible difficulty if they entangle themselves with this ground-bound culture. There was always a vocal opposition to their colonization effort. The Spacers, who are far and away the majority in Alliance, are quite doubtful about any move that puts power in the hands of the ground-bound, blue skiers, as the Spacers call them, and a pre-industrial constituency, or another, more problematical protectorate, is more than the Council of Captains wants to take on. Not mentioning, of course, their Science Bureau, which bids fair to study it to death, while the construction companies scheduled to build a station there are holding off their creditors. The Alliance ambassador demands information for their science people, and an apology. Cheap at the price. There'll be a little coolness, ultimately cooperation. I assure you they're much more scared at what Saul has poked into than we are. Only natural, considering they're much closer to the problem. All in all, it's an excellent time for it to surface. We watched their preparations. We weren't taken by surprise. That's why Admiral Gorodin is inaccessible, as it happens. We knew this was coming. My gut is telling me that the alien stuff they're talking about is detailed in the events of Serpent's Reach, and I think that has a sequel-ish as well. But don't quote me on that, because I don't remember for sure. It's been a long time since I read Serpent's Reach. We knew this was coming, and kept it from us. Lou maintained an icy little silence. Then, us, meaning science, or us, meaning Reseune? Us, Reseune, damn it! Reseune has an interest in this. A past interest, Lou said. The child is far from adult. She can ride out this storm. Emory is beyond reach of any law unless you are religious. Let them subpoena a few documents. Warwick is still in quarantine, thoroughly discredited as far as testimony before the council might go. If his father was working on the project, it can only harm the Warwick name. What is there to concern Reseune? Gerard shut his mouth. He was sweating. Bogdanovich was dead 4 years ago. Harad of Fargon was in the seat of state and making common cause with Gorodin of Defense and DeFranco of Trade, and Lau of Information. Damn them. The expansionist coalition held firm, the abolitionists were in retreat, and Corain and the centrists had lost ground, losing Gorodin to the expansionist camp where he had always belonged. But Nasir Harad,
damn him, snuggled close to Gorodin, the source of the fat defense contracts for his station, and state and defense and information were the coalition within the expansionist coalition, the secret bedfellows. Reseune did not have the influence it had had. That was the bitter truth that Giraud had to live with. It gave him stomach upsets and kept him awake at night. But Ari had been, so far as they understood, unique.
Let me tell you, Giraud said, there are things within our files which are very sensitive. We do not want them released. More, we don't want any chance of Warwick being called out of Planis to testify. You don't understand how volatile that situation is. He has to be kept quiet. His recall of small detail, things he might have heard, things he might have discussed with his father down the years, will be far better than you or I want. His memory is extremely exact. If you don't want Alliance to be able to unravel what you've done in specific detail, keep Warwick quiet. Can I be more clear?
Are you saying present administration can be compromised? Dangerous question. Dangerous interest. Giraud took another breath.
I'm only asking you to listen to me, before you discover that the threads of this lead, yes, under closed doors. You want the Rubin Project blown to hell, you let Warwick get loose, and there won't be a Rubin Project.
Sometimes we're not sure there is a Rubin Project, Lou said acidly, since Reseune Space has yet to do more than minor work. Tests, you say, data collection, data collation. Is there a director?
There is a director. We're about to transfer the bank. It's not a small operation. This inquiry is not going to help us. We're strained as it is. There's an enormous amount of data involved. That's the nature of the process. We are in operation. We have been in operation for 6 years. We do not intend to waste resources in a half-hearted effort, General.
Damn, it's a tactic. Distract and divert.
The point is Warwick. The point is that the Planis facility is under your security, and we have to rely on it. We hope we can rely on it.
Absolutely, as we hope to rely on your cooperation on the Gehenna matter, Counselor Nye. Blackmail, plain and simple. He saw Harad's hand in this.
To what extent?
Agreement to cooperate with Alliance scientists. We'll swear it was a lost operation, no one concealed behind the secrecies of war. We'll swear it was a lost operation, one concealed behind the secrecies of war. Something no one knew had been done, no one in office now, that a communications screw-up saw it launched.
Ariane Emory's name has to be kept out of it.
I don't think that's possible. Let the dead bear the onus of responsibility. The living have far more at stake. I assure you, far more at stake. We want to keep an active channel into this situation on Gehenna. Descendants of Union citizens are still legally our citizens. If we choose to take that view, we may not. In any case, science should be interested in the impact on the ecology and the social system. We stand to gain nothing by withholding an apparent cooperation. Not the actual content of the tapes, to be sure, but at least the composition of the colony, the ratio of military personnel to ASI, the personal histories of some of the military. Khan, for instance, distinguished service. They should have some recognition after all these years. Sentiment. Good God.
Reseune, Giraud said, equally values Emory's distinguished record.
I'm afraid that part will get out. The ASI, you know. Once the public knows that, there's hardly any way you can hide it. But damage control is already in operation. State is onto it.
Harad knew about this operation?
It does fall within State's area of responsibility. Science doesn't make foreign policy. Our obligation in that consideration is quite different. I do urge you to think what your contracts are worth. We do not contract primarily with Bucher Labs. We continue to work with you. We continue to support Reseune Space.
even at a cost disadvantage. We expect that relationship to be a mutually satisfactory one we hope we can continue. I see, Gerard said bitterly. I see. And after a breath or two, Sir Secretary, we need that data protected for more than a dead woman's reputation, to keep Council from blowing this wide open and destroying any chance of success. Now you want our help. You want me to throw myself and my bureau on the grenade. Is that it? Let me explain to you, sir. We have other considerations right now, primarily among them a rampant anti-militarism that's feeding on this scandal as it is, which is a critical danger to our national defense, at a time when we're already under budget constraints, at a time when we can't get the ships we need, and we can't get the problem of expanded perimeters through the heads of the public or the opposition of finance in council. We have a major problem, sir. Your project has become a sink into which money goes and nothing emerges, and, damn it, you want us to stand and shield you from inquiry while you refuse our requests for records. I suggest you defend yourself, sir, with Reseune's well-known resources. Maybe it's time to bring this project of yours out. Make a choice. Give me a reason I can use to maintain that data is classified, or give me the records I need. She's not ready, my God, not now, in the middle of a scandal that touches her predecessor. She's a 6-year-old kid. She can't handle that kind of attack. It's your problem, Lou said, folding his hands, settling into that implacable, bland stare. We don't know, frankly, sir, if we have anything to protect. For all you've been willing to demonstrate to us, it is another bulk clone. I'll show you the records. Bulk's clone was quite good as a child. It was later the problems manifested, wasn't it? And unless you're willing to go public with the child and give me a reason to clamp down on the records, I can't extend that protection any further than I have. Damn it, you leave us vulnerable and they'll find us the door that leads to your own territory. Through yours, I think. You were very active in Reseune administration in those years. Can it be those records you defend lay the blame to you, sir? That's your guess. It may shine light where a good many people don't want it. So we direct the strike, don't we? It's always useful to know what you've left open for attack. I'm sorry it has to be in your territory, but I certainly won't leave it in mine. If you'll apply a little patience. I prefer the word progress, which, quite truthfully, I find lacking in Reseune lately. We can discuss this. I'm prepared to discuss it, but I think you'll understand I am inflexible on certain points. Cooperation is very essential just now. If we do not have a reason to withhold those records, we must provide those records. You must understand. We have to provide something to the inquiry, and soon. One did. One sat and one listened while the defense proxy, damn him to hell, laid out Gorodin's program for, as he called it, damage control. A proposal for scientific and cultural cooperation with Alliance, coming from Defense via the Science Bureau. An official expression of regret from the Council in joint resolution, made possible by the release of selected documents by the present administration of Reseune, indicating Bogdanovich, Emory, and Azov of Defense, all safely deceased, collaborated in the planning of the Gehenna operation. Damn him! We'll see to Warwick, Lou said. Actually, allowing him conference with his son might have some benefit right now. Monitored, of course. Eight. Justin? The voice came from the other end, Jordan's voice, his father's voice, after 8 years.
and Justin, who had steeled himself not to break down in front of Dennis, on whose desk phone the call came, bit his lip till it bled and watched the image come out of the breakup on the screen. A Jordan older, thinner. His hair was white. Justin stared in shock, the consciousness of lost years, and mumbled, "Jordan, God, it's good to see you. We're fine. We're all fine. Grant's not here for this one, but they'll let him next time."
"You're looking fine."
Jordan's voice overrode him, and there was pain in his eyes.
"Gosh, you've grown a bit, haven't you? It's good to see you, son. Where's Grant?"
Time delay. They were 15 seconds lagged by security at either end. "You're looking good yourself." Oh, God, the banalities they had to use when there was so little time. When there was everything in the world to say, and they could not, with security waiting to break the connection at the first hint of a breach of the rules. "How's Paul? Grant and I are living in your apartment, doing real well. I'm still in design." A lift from Dennis's hand warned him. No work discussions. He stopped himself.
"A little grey, I know. I'm not doing badly at all. Good health and all that. Paul, too. Damn, it's good to see your face."
"You can do that in a mirror, can't you?" He forced a little laugh. "I hope I do look that good at the same age. Got a good chance, right? I can't report much. They won't let me. I've been keeping busy. I get your letters. Cut to hell. I really look forward to them. So does..." His father grinned as the joke got through.
"You're my time machine. You've got a good chance. I get your letters, too. I keep all of them."
"So does Grant. He's grown, too. Tall. You could figure. We're sort of left hand and right. We look out for each other. We're doing fine."
"You weren't going to catch him. Not the way he was growing. Paul's gone grey, too. Rejuve, of course. I'm sorry. I was absolutely certain I'd told you in the letters. I forget about it. I'm too damn lazy to dye it."
Meaning the censors had cut the part it was in. Damn them. "I think it looks pretty good, really. You know everything looks pretty much the same at home. Not elsewhere. Except I miss you. Both of you."
"I miss you too, son. I really do. They're signing me. I've got to close down now. Damn, there's so much to say. Be good. Stay out of trouble."
"You be good. We're all right. I love you." The image broke up and went to snow. The vid itself cut off. He bit his lips and tried to look at Dennis with dignity, the way Jordan would have. "Thanks," he said. Dennis's mouth made a little tremor of its own.
"That's all right. That went fine. You want a tape? I ran one."
"Yes, sir. I would like it. For Grant." Dennis ejected it from the desk recorder and gave it to him, and nodded to him, emphatically.
"I'll tell you, they're watching you very closely. It's this Gehenna thing."
"So they want a good grip on Jordan, is that it?"
"You understand very well. Yes, that's exactly what they want. That's exactly why Defense suddenly changed its mind about priorities. There's even a chance, understand, you may get an escorted trip to Planis, but they'll be watching you every time you breathe."
That shook him. Perhaps it was meant to. "Is that in the works?"
"I'm talking with them about it. I shouldn't tell you, but God, son, don't make any mistakes. Don't do anything. You've done spectacularly well since you got your personal problem worked out. Your work's quite fine. You're going to be taking on more responsible things. You know what I mean. More assignments. I want you and Grant to work together on some designs. Really, I want you to work into a staff position here. Both of you."
"Why? So you've got something to take away?"
"Son?"
Dennis gave a deep sigh and looked worried.
"No, precisely the opposite. I want you to be necessary here. Very necessary. They're setting up the Fargon facility, and that's a hell of a long way from Planis."
A cold feeling crept about his heart, old and familiar.
"For God's sake," Dennis said, "don't give them a chance. That's what I'm telling you. We're not totally in control of what's happening. Defense has gotten its hands on your father. It's not going to let go. You understand, it's Gehenna that got you what you've gotten this far. It's Gehenna and the fallout from that that's made them think they have to give your father something to lose. But we haven't released you to them. We've kept you very quiet. The fact that you were a minor protected you and Grant from some things, but without their noticing, you've gotten old enough to mess with. And the Reseune space facility at Fargon has a military wing where you'd make a hell of a hostage.
Is that a threat?
Justin, just give me at least a little not reprieve. Justin, give me at least a little reprieve.
Respite? What am I doing? So one of the cute things she does, by the way, it's very noticeable in this book, is when somebody has, like, a brief pause, she won't do an ellipsis. What she'll do instead is like a big, long double hyphen right before the word. In this case, it starts Justin, comma, space, big honkin' hyphen, give me at least a little respite. There was another one earlier that had a couple of those, like what Lou was doing. He had a bunch of those. So it's really interesting, and I'm trying to get those across what I'm pretty sure they're supposed to sound like, and I may be failing, and if I am, I'm sorry. Is that a threat?
Justin, give me at least a little respite. Give me as much credit as I give you, and your father. I'm trying to warn you about a trap. Think about it, if nothing else. I truly don't trust this sudden beneficence on the part of defense. You're right not to. And I'm trying to warn you of a possible problem. If you're essential personnel, we have a hold on you, and whatever you think, you're a hell of a lot safer if we have that hold now. Draw your own conclusions. You know damn well what an advantage it would be for them if they could have you under their hand at what the fuck?
Today is a struggle.
You know damn well what an advantage it would be for them if they could have you under their hand out at Fargon and Jordan in their keeping at Planis. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Use that information any way you see fit, but I'll give you what chance I can.
He took the tape. He thought about it. Yes, sir, he said finally, because Dennis was right. Fargon was not where he wanted to be sent. Not now, not any longer. No matter what Jordan might have wanted. Oh, that's right. Yanni Schwartz. Finally, he gets a speaking line. And I can't remember what I was going to do for his voice. Oh, no! Oh, thanks for tuning in. A glorious morning to you as well. 9. I thought this might handle some of your objections on MR-1959. Justin typed at the top of his explanation of the attachment to the EO-6823 work. JW. And pulled the project files up and sent them over to Yanni Schwartz's office. With trepidations. He was working again, working overtime and very hard, and earnestly trying because he saw where he had gotten to. He took the tapes. He assimilated things. He tried the kind of designs he had been working on in his spare time 8 years ago, and tried to explain to Yanni that they were only experimental alternates to the regular assignments. Which for some reason made Yanni madder than hell. But then, a lot of things did. Look, Justin had said when Yanni blew up about the MR-1959 alternate. Yanni, I'm doing this on my own time. I did the other thing. I just thought maybe you could give me a little help on this. No damn way you can do a thing like this, Yanni had said. That's all there is to it. Explain. You can't link a skill tape into deep sets. You'll turn out rats on a treadmill. That's what you're doing. Can we talk about this? Can we do this at lunch? I really want to talk about this, Yanni. I think I've got a way to avoid that. I think it's in there. I don't see any reason to waste my time on it. I'm busy, son. I'm busy. Go ask Strassen if you can find her. If anybody can find her, let her play instructor. For that matter, ask Peterson. He's got patience. I don't. Just do your job and turn in your work and don't give me problems, for God's sake. I don't need any more problems.
Peterson handled the beginners. That was what Yanni meant. He did not object with the fact that Dennis Nye had urged him to take up his active studies. He did not object with the fact Ariane Emory had time to look at his prototype designs. I just completely lost my way in that sentence, and the meaning of it eluded my mouth-brain. Oh, would that I were built like an octopus. He did not object with the fact Ariane Emory had It is a double had. That's what it was. That's what it was. Self-doubt, because I knew it's CJ Cherryh. She's gonna had it. She's gonna do a double had. She's gonna do it. And my mouth brain was like, no. Who's gonna do that? And my brain was like, no. There's 2 hads in a row, bud. Sorry. I love you to death, CJ, but oh my gosh. Oh my god. Hads. I'm going to just take the paragraph from the top. He did not object with the fact that Dennis Nye had urged him to take up his active studies. He did not object with the fact Ariane Emory had had time to look at his prototype designs. He swallowed it and told himself that Yanni always hit below the belt when he was bothered. Yanni was a psych designer. Yanni was right up there with the best they had. And Yanni, working with an Azzy, was patience itself. But Yanni, arguing with a CIT, cut loose with every gun he had, including the psych tactics. Of course it stung. That was because Yanni was damned good and he was firing away at a psychological cripple who was trapped and frustrated at every turn. So he got out of there with a quiet, "Yes, sir, I understand," and ached all night before he got his mental balance again, gathered up his shattered nerves, and decided, all right, that's Yanni, isn't it? He's still the best I've got. I can wear him down. What can he do to me? What can words do? A hell of a lot from a psych master, but living in Reseune and aiming to be what Yanni was meant taking it and gathering himself up and going on. Don't take him so seriously, was Grant's word on the fracas. Grant, who went totally business and very shielded when he was within 10 feet of Yanni Schwartz, because Yanni scared him out of good sense. I don't, Justin said. I won't. He's the only one who can teach me anything, except Jane Strassen and Gerard and Dennis, and hell if I'll go to the Nyes. Let's don't even think about hanging around Strassen. No, Grant said fervently. I don't think you'd better do that. Considering what else hung around Strassen's office, to be sure. He did not consciously set up war with Yanni. Only he hurt inside, he was unsure of himself, he tried to do his best work, and Yanni wanted him to design with tabs so a surgeon could pull it out again, because, as Yanni had said on a quieter day, when pressed a second time to be specific on the MR 1959 problem, "You're not that good, dammit, and a skill tape isn't a master tape. Quit putting feathers on a pig. Stay out of the deep sets, or haven't you got brains enough to see where that link's going? I haven't got time for this damn messing around. You're wasting your time and you're wasting mine. You might be a damn fine designer if you got a handle on your own problems and quit fucking around with things they learned 80 years ago wouldn't fucking work. You haven't invented the wheels, son. You've just gone down an old dead end." Ari never said that, he offered finally, which was like pulling his guts up. It came out in a half-breath and much too emotional. "What did she say about it?" "She just critiqued the design and said there were sociological ramifications I didn't have." "Damn right. She said she was going to think about it." Ari was going to think about it. She didn't say she could answer me right then. She didn't say I should think about it. So I don't think you can toss me off like that. I can show you the one I was working on, if that makes a difference.
Son, you better wake up to it. Ari was after one thing with you, and you damn well know what it was. Don't go off on some damn mental tangent and fuck yourself up 6, 8 years later because you're so damn sure you were better at 17 than you are now. That's crap. Recognize it. You got fucked up in several senses. It's natural you want to try to pick up where you left off, but you'd do yourself a better service if you picked up where you are, son, and realized that it wasn't your ideas that made Ari invite you into her office and spend all that time with you. All right? For a moment, he could hardly get his breath. They were private in Yanni's office. No one could hear but them. But no one in all these years had ever said to him as bluntly what Yanni said. Not even Dennis, not even Petros, and he got a fight-flight flash that shoved enough adrenaline into his system that he reacted. He knew he was reacting. He wanted to be anywhere else but trapped in this, with a man he dared not hit. God, they would have him on the table inside the hour, then... Fuck you, Yanni. What are you trying to do to me? I'm trying to help you. Is that your best? Is that the way you deal with your patients? God help them. He was close to breaking down. He clenched his jaw and held it. You know I've been in therapy, you unprincipled bastard. Get off me. And Yanni took a long time about answering him, much more quietly. I'm trying to tell you the truth, son. No one else is. Don't corner him, Petros says. What do you want? Petros to put a fresh coat of plaster on it? He can't lay a hand on you. Dennis won't let him do an intervention. And that's what you fucking need, son. You need somebody to cut deep and grab hold of what's eating at you and show it to you in the daylight. I don't care how you hate it. I'm not your enemy. They're all so damn scared how it'll look if they bring you in for major psych. They don't want that for fear it'll leak and Jordan will blow. But I care about you, son. I care so damn much, I'll rip your guts out and give 'em to you on a plate, and trust the old adage doesn't hold and that you can put yourself back together. Ari's in the news right now, and it's not good, and there's too damn much media attention hovering around the edges of our security. We can't arrest you and haul you in for the treatment you need. You listen to me. You listen. Everybody else is saving their ass. And you're bleeding while Petros does half-hearted patches on a situation all of us can see. Dennis tried to talk to you. You won't cooperate. Thank God you are trying to wake up and get to work. If I did what I wanted, son, I'd have shot you full of juice before I had this little talk with you, and maybe it'd sink in. But I want you to look real hard at what you're doing. You're trying to go back to where you were. You're wasting time. I want you to accept what happened, figure the past is the past, and turn me in the kind of work you're capable of. Fast work. You're slow. You're damned slow. You muddle along with checks and rechecks like you're scared shitless you're gonna fuck up, and you don't need to do that. You're not the final checker. You don't have to work like you are, because I'm sure as hell not going to let you do that for a long while yet. So just relax, put the work out, and do the best you can on your own level. Not, he made a careless flip at the pages, not this stuff. He sat there in silence a while, bleeding, like Yanni said. And because he was stubborn, because there was only one thing he wanted, he said, Prove to me I'm wrong. Do me a critique. Run it past sociology. Show me what the second and third generation would do. Show me how it integrates. Or doesn't. Have you looked around you? Have you seen the kind of schedules we've been running? Where do you think I've got the time to mess with this? Where do you think I'm going to budget sociology to solve a problem that's been solved for 80 years? I'm saying it's solved here. I'm saying I've got it. You critique my designs then. You want to tell me I'm crazy? Show me where I'm wrong. Damn it, I won't help you wallow in the very thing that's the matter with you. I'm Jordan's son. I was good enough. Damn it, stop looking at the past. 6 years ago wasn't worth shit, son. Prove it to me. Prove it, Yanni, or admit you can't. Go to Peterson. Peterson can't prove anything to me. I'm better than he is. I started that way. You arrogant little bastard. You are not better than Peterson. Peterson pays his way around here. If you weren't Jordan's son, you'd be living in a one-bedroom efficiency with an allotment your work entitles you to. Which won't pay for your fancy taste, son. Grant and you together don't earn that place you're living in. What does my father's work pay for, and what does he get? Send my designs to him. He'd find the time. Yanni took in a breath. Let it out again. Damn, what do I do with you? Whatever you want. Everyone else does. Fire me. You're going to get these designs about once a week. And if you don't answer me, I'll ask. Once a week. I want my education, Yanni. I'm due that. And you're the instructor I want. Do whatever you like. Say whatever you like. I won't give up. Damn it! He stared straight at Yanni, not even putting it beyond Yanni to get up, come around the desk, and hit him. I'd ask Strassen, he said, but I don't think they want me near her. And I don't think she's got the time. So that leaves you, Yanni. You can fire me, or you can prove I'm wrong and teach me why. But do it with logic. Psyching me doesn't do it. I haven't got the time! No one does. So make it. It doesn't take much if you can see so clearly where I'm wrong. 2 sentences are all I need. Tell me where it'll impact the next generation. Get the hell out of here. Am I fired? No! Yanni snarled, which was the friendliest thing staff had said to him in years.
Yeah, I'm of 2 minds, so that's, that is a piece of artwork that you refer to, which I am finding extremely distracting every time I look up and see it. It is a bit of side fluff art that a co-conspirator, let's say, of CJ Cherryh's did up. Her name will come to me. I think they've co-authored books together. Nuts, what's her name? Anyway, it's supposed to be of Grant. And yeah, he's stupid sexy. I'm like, I don't swing that way, but I could. Where are you? I've got it here somewhere. Oh, I don't have it there. Where did I put it? How is it finding it if it's not there? Oh, because I just went into the wrong folder. One sec. Here it is. Book covers. Cyteen. Where are you? Jane Fancher. Yes. She's the one who did the art for that one. The most of the other covers, I say most because I don't know who actually did the 1995 edition that I think it's the 95 edition that I'm holding. Yes. I don't know who did the cover of the 95 edition. But like most of the other cover art is by one Don Maitz. M-A-I-T-Z, Maitz. You can, in fact, get the cover art to the first volume of Cyteen for the low price of something like $6,000. Like the original oil painting. He's done a bunch of cover artwork for CJ Cherryh, but he's done a lot of cover artwork in general. He's a master of his craft. Very, very good. Also did the covers of, for instance, did he do? Yeah, I believe he did both of the, what is it? What's the first one called? Heavy Time, thank you. Heavy Time and Hellburner. He did the cover art for those. He did cover art for There's another one that he did cover art for that I kind of want to read on stream, but I can't remember if it was Rim Runners or Tripod. I think it was Rim Runners. I think he did the art for Rim Runners. I have to double check that. Don't quote me. Anyway, very good cover art. I am fond. Okay. So he did 2 tapes. One for Yanni. One, the one he wished they would let him use. Because it taught him things. Because it let him see the whole set. Because, as Grant said, a skill was damned important to an Azzy. And he still could not work out the ethics of it, whether it was right to make a Theta get real pleasure out of the work instead of the approval. There was something moral involved. There were basic structural problems in linking that way into an Azzy psych set. That was the trouble with it, and Yanni was right. An artificial psych set needed simple foundations, not complicated ones, or it got into very dangerous complexities. Deep-set linkages could become neuroses and obsessive behavior that could destroy an Azzy and be far more cruel than any simple boredom. See Exhibit A, what's sort of being tackled there, excuse me, is that the paperclip parable, the paperclip or stamp collecting parable, AI parable, where if you have a hyper-intelligent, where if you have an AI whose sole purpose is to collect paperclips, it will do, without proper constraints in place, it will do everything possible in order to optimize the amount of paperclips it can have. This includes making itself more intelligent and ultimately converting Earth and all its constituent molecules into paperclips. That's an extreme example, but like we're kind of getting into you don't know what something is going to do if you mess with its reward centers. Anyway. But he kept turning in the study designs for Yanni to see, when Yanni was in a mellow mood, and Yanni had been, now and again. "You're a fool," was the best he got, and sometimes a paragraph on paper outlining repercussions, suggesting a study tape out of sociology. He cherished those notes. He got the tapes. He ran them. He found mistakes. He built around them. "You're still a fool," Yanni said. "What you're doing, son, is making your damage slower and probably deeper. But keep working. If you've got all this spare time, I can suggest some useful things to do with it. We've got a glitch up in a beta set. We've got everything we can handle. The set is 10 years old and it's glitching off one of 3 manual skills tapes. We think. The instructor thinks. You've got the case histories in this fiche. Apply your talents to that and see if you and Grant can come up with some answers." He went away with the fiche and the folder, with a troubleshoot to run, which was hell and away more real work than Yanni had yet trusted him with. Which was, when he got it on the screen, a real bitch. The 3 Azzy had had enough tape run on them over the years to fill a page, and each one had been in a different application. But the glitch was a bad one. The Azzy were all under patch tape, a generic calm down, it's not your fault, meaning 3 Azzy were waiting real time in some anguish for some designer to come up with something to take their nameless distress and deal with it in a sensible way. God, it was months old. They were not on Cyteen. Local master supervisors had a hand in the analysis, run 2 fixes on one, and they had gone badly sour. Which meant it was beyond ordinary distress. It was not a theoretical problem. He made 2 calls, one to Grant. "I need an opinion." One to Yanni. "Tell me someone else is working on this. Yanni, this is a probable wipe, for God's sake. Give it to someone who knows what he's doing." "You claim you do," Yanni said, and hung up on him. "Damn you!" he yelled at Yanni after the fact. And when Grant got there, they threw out everything they were both working on and got on it. For 3 damnable sleep-deprived weeks before they completed a deep-set intersect in a skills tape. in all 3.
Damn it, he yelled at Yanni when he turned it in. This is a mess, Yanni. You could have found this thing in a week. These are human beings, for God's sake. One of them's running with a botch up on top of the other damage.
Well, you managed, don't you? I thought you'd empathize. Go do a fix.
What do you mean, do a fix? Run me a check.
This one's all yours. Do me a fix. You don't need a check. He drew a long, desperate breath, and stared at Yanni with the thought of breaking his neck.
Is this a real-time problem? Or is this some damn trick? Some damn exercise you've cooked up?
Yes, it's real time, and while you're standing here arguing, they're still waiting. So get on it. You did that fairly fast. Let's see what else you can do.
I know what you're doing to me, damn it! Don't take it out on the Azzy!
Don't you, Yanni said, and walked off into his inner office and shut the door. He stood there. He looked desperately at Marge, Yanni's aide. Of course his aide is named Marge. Marge! Marge gave him a sympathetic look and shook her head. So he went back and broke the news to Grant, and turned in the fix in 3 days. Fine, Yanni said. I hope it works. I've got another case for you. 10. Let me water.
Watering the plants.
Well, they say all female pornography is literary, so I guess it's a good sales strategy. For what it's worth, I don't think it was ever in an actual cover. I included it because I was looking for any Cyteen art. But if it does prove too distracting, I can nix it. But I figured, hey, why not? I'm not sure what medium she used for that now that I think of it. Could be pastels. She has a bunch of other artwork up on CJ Cherryh's site. A lot of her faces look kind of like... Never mind. 10.
This is part of my work,
Maman said, and Ari, walking with her hand in Maman's, not because she was a baby, but because the machinery was huge and things moved and everything was dangerous, looked around at the shiny steel things they called womb tanks, each one as big as a bus, and asked, loudly,
"Where are the babies?"
"Inside the tanks," Maman said. And Azzy came up, and Maman said, "This is my daughter Ari. She's going to take a look at a few of the screens." "Yes, Dr. Strassen," the Azzy said. Everyone talked loud. "Hello, Ari."
"Hello,"
she yelled up at the Azzy, who was a woman, and held on to Maman's hand because Maman was following the Azzy down the long row. Whoa, I skipped a page. Hello. Did I? No, it's just confusing. And held on to Maman's hand because Maman was following the Azzy down the long row. It was only another desk, after all, and a monitor screen. But Maman said, "What's the earliest here?" Number 10's down. Number 10's a week down." "Ari, can you count 10 tanks down? That's nearly to the wall." Ari looked and counted. She nodded. "All right," Maman said. "Mary, let's have a look." "Ari, Mary here is going to show you the baby inside number 10, right here on the screen." "Can't we look inside?" "The light would bother the baby," Maman said. "They're like birthday presents. You can't open them till it's the baby's birthday. All right?" That was funny. Ari laughed and plumped herself down on the seat, and what came on screen was a red little something. "That's the baby," Maman said, and pointed. "Right there." "Ugh." It clicked with something she had seen somewhere, which was probably tape. It was a kind of a baby. "Oh, yes. Ugh. All babies look that way when they're a week old. It takes them how many weeks to be born?" 40 and some, Ari said. She remembered that from down deep, too. "Are they all like this?"
What's closest to 8 weeks, Mary? 4 and 5 are 9, Mary said. That's tanks 4 and 5, Ari. Look where they are, and we'll show you. Which one, Mary? Number 4, Sarah. Here we are. It's still ugly, Ari said. Can we see a pretty one? Well, let's just keep hunting. The next was better. The next was better still. Finally, the babies got so big they were too big to see all of. And they moved around. Ari was excited, really excited, because Mama said they were going to birth one. There were a lot of techs when they got around to that. Mama took firm hold of Ari's shoulders and made her stand right in front of her so she would be able to see. And told her where to look, right there, right in that tank. Won't it drown? Ari asked. No, babies live in liquid, don't they? Now, right now, the inside of the tank is doing just what the inside of a person does when birth happens. It's going to push the baby right out, like muscles, only this is all pumps. It's really going to bleed because there's a lot of blood going in and out of the pumps, and it's going to break some of the vessels in the bioplasm when it pushes like that. Does the baby have a cord and everything? Oh, yes, babies have to have. It's a real one. Everything is real right up to the bioplasm. That's the most complicated thing. It can really grow a blood system. Watch out now. See the light blink. That means the text should get ready. Here it comes. There's its head. That's the direction babies are supposed to face. Sploosh! Ari cried, and clapped her hands when it hit the tank, and stood still as it started squirming and the nasty stuff went through the water. But the Azzy techs got it out of there, and got the cord, and it did go on moving. Ari stood up on her toes, trying to see if they took it over to the counter, but Mary the Azzy made them stop to show her the baby making faces. It was a boy baby. Then they washed it and powdered it and wrapped it up, and Mary held it and rocked it. This is GY-7866, Maman said. His name is August. He's going to be one of our security guards when he grows up, but he'll be a baby for a long time yet. When you're 12, he'll be as old as you are now. Ari was fascinated. They let her wash her hands and touch the baby. It waved a fist at her and kicked, and she laughed out loud. It was so funny. Say goodbye, Maman said then. Thank Mary. Thank you, Ari said, and meant it. It was fun. She hoped they could come back again. Did you like the lab? Maman said. I liked it when the baby was born. Ollie was born like that. He was born right in this lab. She could not imagine Ollie tiny and funny like that. She did not want to think of Ollie like that. She wrinkled her nose and made Ollie all right in her mind again. Grown up and handsome in his black uniform. She's young. Sometimes CITs are born out of the tanks, Maman said. If for some reason their mamans can't carry them, the tanks can do that. Do you know the difference between an Azzy and a CIT when they're born the same way? That was a hard question. There were a lot of differences. Some were rules, and some were the way Azzy were. What's that? She asked Maman. How old were you when you had tape the first time? Oh, I'm 6. That's right. And you had your first tape the day after your birthday. Didn't scare you, did it? No, she said. She shook her head so her hair flew. Because she liked to do that. Maman was slow with her questions, and she got bored in between. You know when August will have his first tape? When? Today. Right now. They put him in a cradle, and it has a kind of a tape going so he can hear it. She was impressed. Jealous, even. August was a threat if he was going to be that smart. Why didn't I do that? Because you were going to be a CIT. Because you have a lot to learn. Because you have to learn a lot of things the old-fashioned way. Because tapes are good, but if you've got a mama or a papa to take care of you, you learn all kinds of things August won't learn until he's older. CITs get a head start in a way. Ozzy learn a lot about how to be good and how to do their jobs, but they're not very good at figuring out what to do with things they've never met before. CITs are good at taking care of emergencies. CITs can make up what to do. They learn that from their mamans. Tape learning is good, but it isn't everything. That's why Mama tells you to pay attention to what you see and hear. That's why you're supposed to learn from that first, so you know tape isn't as important as your own eyes and ears. If August had a Mama to take him home today, he'd be a CIT. Why can't Mary be his Mama? Because Mary has too many kids to take care of. She has 500 every year, sometimes more than that. She couldn't do all that work, so the tape has to do it. That's why Azzy can't have Mamas. There just aren't enough to go around. I could take August. No, you couldn't. Mamas have to be grown up. I'd have to take him home, and he'd have to sleep in your bed and share your toys and have dirty diapers and cry a lot. And you'd have to share Mama with him forever and ever. You can't send a baby back just because you get tired of him. Would you like to have him take half your room and Mama and Nellie and Ollie have to take care... Oh, I just don't know how to read lines. Would you like to have him take half your room and Mama and Nellie and Ollie have to take care of him all the time? Because he'd be the baby then, and he'd have to have all Mama's time. No! That was not a good idea. She grabbed onto Mama's hand and made up her mind no baby was going to sneak in and take half of everything. Sharing with nasty friends was bad enough. Come on, Maman said, and took her outside in the sun and into the garden where the fish were. Ari looked in her pants pocket, but there was no crumb of bread or anything. Nellie had made her put on clean. Have you got fish food? No, Maman said, and patted the rock she sat on. Come sit by Maman, Ari. Tell me what you think about the babies. Lessons. Ari sighed and left the fish that swam up under the lilies. She squatted down on a smaller rock where she could see Maman's face and leaned her elbows on her knees. What do you think about them? They're all right. You know Ollie was born there. Is that baby going to be another Ollie? You know he can't. Why? She screwed up her face and thought, he's GY something, and Ollie's AO. He's not even an alpha. That's right. That's exactly right. You're very smart. She liked to hear that. She fidgeted. You know, you were born in that room, Ari. She heard that again in her head, and was not sure Mama was not teasing her. She looked at Mama, trying to figure out if it was a game. It didn't look like a game. Maman couldn't carry you. Maman's much too old. Maman's been on Reju for years and years, and she can't have babies anymore. But the tanks can, so she told Mary to make a special baby. And Maman was there at the tank when it was birthed, and Mama picked it up out of the water, and that was you, Ari. She stared at Mama, and tried to put herself in that room and in that tank and be that baby Mary had picked up. She felt all different. She felt like she was different from herself. She did not know what to do about it. Mama held her hands out. Do you want Mama to hold you, sweet? I will. Yes, she wanted that. She wanted to be little and fit on Mama's lap, and she tried, but she hurt Mama. She was so big, so she just tucked up beside Mama on the rock, and felt big and clumsy while Mama hugged her and rocked her. But it felt safer. Mama loves you, sweet. Mama truly does. There's nothing wrong at all in being born out of that room. You're the best little girl Mama could have. I wouldn't trade you for anybody. I'm still yours. Mama was not going to answer. Whoa. Okay. So this CJ Cherryh here pulls a bit of a visual gag or visual thing that is incredibly difficult for me to accurately or adequately translate into something audible. I'm going to read the sentence. I'm then going to read you everything with punctuation intact.
And if the meaning isn't clear at that point, I'll explain the meaning. Maman was not going to answer Maman was. So fast a change, it scared her till Maman said, "You're still mine, sweet." So, with punctuation intact, Maman was not going to answer /Maman was, comma. So fast a change, it scared her till Maman said, quote, "You're still mine, comma, sweet, period," unquote. So what's happening there is Jane Strassen was not going to answer her question, and then she decides to. Possibly impulsively. Because there's things she's not supposed to do in the raising and rearing of Ari, as was explained the last time we streamed. Because of the project. Maman was not going to answer, then Maman was. So fast a change it scared her till Maman said, "You're still mine, sweet." She did not know why her heart was beating so hard. She did not know why it felt like Maman was not going to say that at first. That scared her more than anything. She was glad Maman had her arms around her. She was cold. "I told you not everybody has a papa. But you did, Ari. His name was James Carnath. That's why Amy's your cousin." "Amy's my cousin?" She was disgusted. People had cousins. It meant they were related. Nasty old Amelie Carnath was not anybody she wanted to be related to. "Where is my papa?" "Dead, sweet. He died before you were born." "Couldn't Ollie be my father?" "Ollie can't, sweet. He's on Rejuve too." "He doesn't have white hair." "He dyes it the same as I do." That was an awful shock. She couldn't think of Ollie being old like Maman. Ollie was young and handsome. "I want Ollie to be my papa." Maman made that upset feeling again. She felt it in Maman's arms, in the way Maman breathed. "Well, it was James Carnath. He was a scientist like Maman. He was very smart. That's where you get half your smart, you know. You know when you're going on Rejuve, and you know you might want a baby later, you have to put your gene set in the bank so it's there after you can't make a baby anymore. Well, that was how you could be started, even if your papa died a long time ago. And there you waited, in the gene bank, all the years until Mama was ready to take care of a baby." Which I guess is revealing about how Rejuve works. Apparently it effectively sterilizes you, at least for the normal way. Whether that's a result of the Rejuve itself or a result of the person being physically old and having enough of their biology reverted, enough of their biological clock reverted. Anyway, it's an interesting little detail. "And there you waited, in the gene bank, all the years until Mama was ready to take care of a baby." "I wish you'd done it sooner," Ari said. "Then you wouldn't be so old." Maman cried. And she did, because Maman was unhappy. But Maman kissed her and called her sweet and said she loved her, so she guessed it was all right as it was as all right as it was going to get. She thought about it a lot. She had always thought she came out of Mama. It was all right if Mama wanted her to be born from the tanks. It didn't make her an Aussie. Mama saw to that. It was nice to be born where Ollie was born. She liked that idea. She didn't care about whoever James Carnath was. He was Carnath. Ugh, like Amy. She thought when Ollie was a baby he would have had black hair and he would be prettier than August was. She thought when she grew up to be as old as Mama she would have her own Ollie, and she would have a Nellie. But not a Phaedra. Phaedra bossed too much. So you didn't have to have Ozzy if you didn't want them. You had to order them, or they didn't get born. That for Phaedra, who tattled on her. She would get August instead when he grew up, and he would be security in their hall, and say, "Good morning, Sarah," to her, just like security did to Mama. She would have a Grant, too.
with red hair. She would dress him in black the way a lot of Ozzy did, and he would be very handsome,
as evidenced by that picture of Grant on the bed.
She did not know what he would do, but she would like to have an Ozzy with red hair all the same. She would be rich like Mama. She would be beautiful. She would fly in the plane and go to the city, and she would buy lots and lots of pretty clothes and jewels like Maman's, so that they went to New Year. They would make everybody say how beautiful they all were. She would find Valerie and tell him to come back, and Sarah Schwartz too. They would all be happy. And that is where I have to call it for today. Bit of a shorter one. Not by much, but a little bit shorter. Let's see. I'm not sure when I'll stream next. Friday is a lock, I think, so far. Friday should be a lock. Tomorrow, probably not. But Thursday is in play. So we'll see. I might have other commitments, so I can't be sure. I had something else salient to say, but I don't remember what it was, so it must not have been that important. Anyway, hope people are enjoying. Yep. There is a significant chunk of the book that's kind of slow, but it makes this is a section of the book that's kind of slow, but it makes up for it with having rather a lot of detail going on. It's pretty good. Events are going to speed up pretty quickly, though. I don't feel like that's a huge spoiler, but it moves. It's not an action thriller. It's much more of a, I don't know what you would call it, a sociological thriller. There are some bits of action, but it's one of the things that I really admire the hell out of CJ Cherryh for, is, like, she does have action sequences. She can do action sequences very well. She generally chooses not to do them, but instead makes, like, an action sequence where not much action-y actually happens, but still gets your blood pumping. Due to the emotional tension of the moment. We have a bunch of that in, like, Heavy Time with some of the stuff that Decker's doing. That sort of thing. She's a maestro at doing that. Like, I have yet to encounter an author that's able to quite do that as well as her. Some have come close, but it's partly, I think a big part of that is because of the way she makes the characters feel absolutely real and the universe feel very lived in. So, like, you can easily think of them as people. They're not, basically nobody is one note. Even when they're, like, actively trying to be one note. There's always depth and gradation there. Like Down Below Station, like, you know practically nothing about, what's her name? Mallory. Signe Mallory. But, like, even and what we do know about her is, like, kind of, she's a bit of a malefactor for much of that book. But then, like, steadily, she's, like, feeding you dribs and drabs, and showing you, basically getting you up to the point where, you know, the final confrontation at the end of Down Below Station, where, you know, the Maziani are kind of chased off, and Mallory sides with the Merchanters, what will become known as the Merchanter Alliance. Like, it's all kind of building up to that point. What's his name? The guy who's a Union spy, who's befriended by what's his name? I can't remember the family name. Anyway, that guy. He seems kind of one note, and then, like,
you kind of have the, oh, he's actually like a person who's been bred specifically to be a saboteur slash spy. And like the relationship dynamic shifts are another thing that's really cool that she does, where you'll have like these incredible dynamic shifts in how a relationship is working out. And that's kind of, if there's one constant with CJ Cherryh, it's that, and like kind of playing with expected roles. Typically expected gender roles, but also like power dynamic roles. So you get a lot of power dynamic shifts over the course of this book. This book is power dynamic shifts the volume. It's wild. You have them all over the place. I can't talk more about that at this time without spoiling things, so I won't. Suffice it to say, the status quo does not remain the same. And that is a spoiler, and there's somebody who's probably going to be very upset at that. And I'm sorry. Mostly sorry. I'm sorry adjacent. I don't deliberately spoil things. Anytime I've done it, it was not intended to ruin anyone's fun. Sometimes, though, I do get too excited and try to hype something up more than I should, though. And in so doing, I think I have spoiled things before. Not with this book. But yeah. It's good stuff. Anyway. I gotta run. I will see you all later. I'll try and... If I get a unexpected day available, I will try and mention it in the Discord. Otherwise... Stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other. And that's it. Yep, there we are.